The iPad mini versus the iPad Pro is a tough question for most people. I love both of these iPads. I've had a great time with them. I've grown up using iPads. And so when you ask me which one of these devices are better, it's a really hard thing to answer, but I think I have a pretty definitive answer for most people, so let's get into it. Now, like I said, I've been using iPads for a long time. I find them to be such a helpful tool in your toolkit of how you're gonna get your work done. It's not everything. I really don't think the iPad is a full computer replacement, which we'll get into in a little bit. It is, however, a great tool for consumption. And that's what brings me to my first point today. The iPad mini is just a better tool for consumption. When you're looking at these two devices, they might not seem all that different, but really, like in the hand, when you're holding them side by side, one feels like you have an enormous screen in your hand. The other one feels like you have something like the size of a book. Like looking at the difference of holding the iPad mini, which feels like the size of a book, and holding something like the iPad Pro, man, it is such a huge difference in the hand. One makes me feel like I would actually want to sit down, relax, and read for a while. This iPad Pro doesn't feel like it would be comfortable, I don't know, to sit by a pool or something like that and read. It's just too stinking big. Then when you're watching something like YouTube on this device, yes, the iPad Pro is a beautiful screen, the 120 hertz display, that's awesome, all right? But like when you're holding an iPad mini in your hand, it feels so much better. Yes, the screen is nicer on the iPad Pro, but the size of the iPad mini to me is just perfect for the distance from your hand to your face. It's kind of like watching a big screen TV away, you know, farther away. The reason why it's so big is because it's further away. When it's this close to your face, having an iPad mini to me just feels like the right size. The other thing is when you're gaming on an iPad mini, your hands fit the screen a whole lot better. It just makes more sense. The iPad mini to me is made for the human body. Whereas something like the iPad Pro, it really does feel like it belongs with the keyboard. The next thing we need to talk about is the fact that the iPad mini is so much cheaper. The iPad Pro starts at $799 for this 11-inch display. If you're gonna go for the 12-inch display, it starts at $1,099, as you can see right here. That is so much money. Whereas when we're talking about the iPad mini, you're gonna be paying $499 for the 64 gig or $649 for the 256 gig. Now for most people, they're going to appreciate the extra savings, but here's the thing. With the iPad mini, it is so much better for families. Because it is cheaper, everybody who has a kid has had a kid who's picked up an iPad and has dropped it. Like literally, case in point, when I was setting up to start this video, I grabbed my iPad Pro off of my nightstand, and my son had set a bubble gun on the side and it had tipped on top of it and it got all over. Thankfully I had a case on it, but it had gotten all over the iPad. When you have a cheaper iPad mini, it's better for families because it can be broken. Yes, $600, $700, that's a lot of money, but it's not $1,099. And just side note for parents, if you do want your kid to have some kind of device like this, it's probably best to go with the Kindle. They have like ones with big bumpers for kids. It's a great product, so I definitely recommend that if you have kids. But just the fact that a kid can actually hold onto the iPad mini without dropping it, it's cheaper. If it breaks, you can replace it. You can find them on the used market for so much cheaper than the iPad Pro. And so for the price of these devices, I definitely recommend, if you're more budget conscious, go with the iPad mini. Now, I also want to say a quick word about the regular iPad. This is such a great device for most people. See, when you're looking at an iPad Pro, it never uses the full power of the chip that's in it. An M2 iPad Pro, man, that has so much overhead in the device, but if you're looking at the regular iPad, it's a fantastic device. So right here you can see on Apple's website, if you're looking for just the plain regular iPad that still feels plenty fast, it feels plenty big as a device, the 10th generation iPad is $449, and the 9th generation iPad, which by the way still works fantastic, is $329. With these iPads, you're still getting the A14 Bionic and the A13 Bionic chip, which, I mean, everything I've done so far has never really felt like it's pushed through that threshold and that barrier. And so maybe you're in between the worlds of the iPad mini and the iPad Pro. Like the iPad mini might be too small for you, and the iPad Pro just might be way too much money for you. The regular 10th generation iPad is a fantastic option. And make sure you're always looking on the refurbished store. Yes, the regular iPad is not very expensive, but if you look on the refurbished store, you can find awesome deals on it, and you're gonna save money, you're gonna get a great device, so that might be the way to go. Next up, I really do believe that the iPad mini is more versatile than the iPad Pro, hands down. Yes, the iPad Pro is more powerful, but In an iPad, you don't need all that power. The wonderful thing about the iPad mini is the size and where you can use it. I know for a lot of people, the iPad mini is the perfect companion for somebody like a pilot. I've seen a lot of helicopter pilots using iPad minis. It's great for somebody who's driving in their car and maybe they don't want to use up their iPhone all day, and so they can tether their iPad to their phone, watch YouTube, play games. It's really great. I've also brought the iPad mini with me on hikes. Now that might seem ridiculous because you're going out into the wilderness to try to get away from technology, but because I have all of my reading on my iPad, I just end up bringing my iPad with me everywhere I go. Like I say, with the size of this thing, look at that. It is so small. It fits into any backpack anytime. It is a fantastic little device. Whereas something like the iPad Pro is just so big. Like I said, it's not that it's bad. It is a beautiful screen. It's a wonderful device, but it is just so large that the versatility of where you can bring it, where you feel comfortable using it, it's very different. And as I kind of just alluded to a second ago, obviously the iPad mini is just so much more portable. I've had both of these devices in my backpack. When I take the iPad Pro with me, oftentimes I feel like bringing a keyboard because it is kind of going to be a bit of a laptop replacement for me. But when I'm bringing the iPad mini, I want it just as the mini device. And so I don't bring a mouse, I don't bring a keyboard, and it can fit in small things like even a fanny pack. I've got a larger fanny pack. Is that what you call them? Hip bag? I don't know. I'm not cool anymore. And when I'm out on the go, if I'm out with my kids, I can take this so that when they're playing on a playground, I can actually read a book anytime I want to. And I don't know if you're catching the drift here. I like reading a lot. And the final reason why I think the iPad mini might be better for you than the iPad Pro is actually because the iPad mini is less of a laptop replacement. Some people might want to buy something like an iPad Pro as a laptop replacement, and that's totally cool if you want just one device. Like if you've ever used the keyboard, the Magic Keyboard on this, it is super cool. It's got a great trackpad, all that. They've really worked it out to be wonderful, but I don't want that. I don't want a crossover that I feel like is kind of half as good as a MacBook and half as good as an iPad. What I want is something that's dedicated. I want the iPad mini just to be the iPad mini. I want my MacBook Pro to be my MacBook Pro. Because no matter how hard people try, when you try to get real hard work done on an iPad, it is still just clunky. It's not there yet. I don't know that it's ever fully gonna be there. I think Apple purposefully keeps these kind of departments, these workflows apart because they want you to buy both devices. And so the fact that the iPad mini is not trying in any way at all to be a laptop replacement means that it is great as just an iPad. It really makes it so the lines are clear which workflows are gonna be for which device. If I'm gonna read and consume, it's probably gonna be on my iPad mini. If I'm going to create and edit videos and write long documents and things like that, I'm going to do it on my MacBook Pro. Because the truth is, decision fatigue is a real thing. If you're a leader in your job and you're always having to make decisions, when you get decision fatigue, it's just you get to the end of your day and you're so tired. If I can make any decisions easier, I'm gonna do that. So whenever I can take a decision off my plate of if I'm gonna use an iPad, if I'm gonna use a computer, it's just the lines are clear and I love it that way. So let me know in the comments below, do you like the iPad Pro or are you a fan of the iPad mini? And if you're interested in this video, maybe you're interested in a video I recently did where I compared all of the MacBook Pros and all of the MacBook Airs. Check that video out right here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you. I'll see you all in the next one.